This is primarily for Substack followers, and over there I'm going to post a Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting where somebody asks Warren Buffett, he's holding up a dollar bill or a $20 bill and says, when you issue new stock, isn't it like issuing currency? And it's a sort of a slow, long answer, but Buffett says, yes, absolutely. Whenever we go to issue a new common stock or a new preferred stock, preferred means it gets any cash flow before the common, that it literally is like we're creating money, like crypto. So what I thought I'd do is a little piece that's like, I don't mean this in a bad way, like one's better than the other, but Berkshire Hathaway, I think over its lifetime, has a total return of like 22,000% or something like that. So Ethereum is up about 1,000% since COVID. So, and it has a market cap down there beside my shoulder, 468 billion, half $1 trillion. Berkshire Hathaway is worth $1 trillion. Since the end of the Cold War, the early 90s, roughly when that shareholder meeting was taking place, Berkshire Hathaway's done 2,000% return. Now, I bring that up because if we think about the kinds of things that Warren has invested in over the years, Coca-Cola has always been one of his favorites, just prints money. Philip Morris, several of the big banks, and of course, I think Berkshire, the first thing he bought was a company that makes like bras and girdles. That's what Berkshire was. So the reason I bring all this up is to get back to this idea of a stock is like an equity. Obviously it's an equity, but it's also like a currency, because we're sort of lost. We don't know how to talk about how do these systems, how are they related to what we've been investing in for the last 100 years? So when I first started talking about Ethereum, especially with people that were older than me, I would say things like, imagine buying General Electric in 1905. And they'd go, yeah, no one really even knew what electricity was. And I said, exactly. And then I'd say things like, imagine, because I grew up in Pennsylvania, imagine investing in the Pennsylvania Railroad right after the Civil War. And they'd go like, yeah, you'd have no way to know how big the Pennsylvania Railroad for a long time was the most popular traded stock in the New York Stock Exchange. So, but I want to get back to this idea of your currency and your common stock are the same thing. I have always, since I've been producing, it's roughly been this time frame that I've been producing content on TikTok related to, I called it Bruno Crypto TikTok for a while, and then I changed it to Bruno Blockchain. Blockchain's a better word. I would say, think of these things like equity. Stop thinking of them as coins. But for this conversation, we're just going to say that money and currency and equity is all the same thing, right? And when things go bad, even debt becomes like equity, right? You can have, like when GM went bankrupt, for example, I think the bonds were trading at 45 cents on the dollar. So the bonds, whenever they lose their credit rating, start moving like having volatility like stocks. So there's a great one-liner in Decline of the West that I always go back to, that I read when I was like 24 years old, and I've never quite gotten over it, where Oswald Spengler, the author, says that when an American tycoon writes down $100 million, which in 1914 was a big number, it exists. And that's what Warren Buffett's trying to explain, is that when he and Charlie issue shares, it turns into currency. It's the same thing. It's like Warren Buffett's crypto. It's like Warren Buffett's money. Shares of Berkshire Hathaway are equity and money, and it's all the same thing. Why? So think about this. In these big shareholder meetings, and you've probably seen them, he just recently announced that he would no longer be running Berkshire in his last meeting. These are enormous events, right? There's like 50,000 people in these arenas. And that's how Ethereum got started. Just think this through for a minute. So when Warren and Charlie Munger issue. They issued the Berkshire B shares, I think, in the 80s at some point. And that just turned into currency because everybody in their community and in the investment community turned something that was like nothing. It was just like a piece of paper. When I was first a stockbroker, I used to handle stock certificates all the time, which are just a piece of paper with some numbers on them and a CUSIP number and something that usually looks like the Statue of Liberty or some version of it. But it's just a piece of paper. It's just a crypto. It's just a little digital event somewhere. It's like that thing in Wolf of Wall Street when he says it's a nothing, it's fairy dust. Well, to be fair, Warren Buffett's fairy dust turns into profits for every, how does this go? For every transaction they've ever sold to make a profit or a gain has been 100-to-1 ratio in profits. It's really incredible to think about. And I think Warren therefore deserves to be thought of as like the great American investor. But I think that's now changed. I think Apple is the thing that took him to $1 trillion market cap. He said that Tim Cook made more market cap than he did. Quick question for you though on this AI thing. If OpenAI, which is not publicly traded, has a market cap about the size of Ethereum, about $500 billion, but it's not publicly traded, why isn't Apple or Microsoft involved with OpenAI? Why did Microsoft sort of step back from OpenAI? Something's wrong there. I won't even get into it in this. I've made other comments about Sam Altman and OpenAI. And now, of course, it's going to be, we've learned this in the last couple of days, that OpenAI is also going to include porn and Walmart. So the biggest tech in America is now porn and Walmart related, along with your recursive general AI, which Sam Altman believes will eventually achieve consciousness and godlike abilities. At some point, I have to review the piece by Harari called Homo Deus, which literally means man god. These people believe that dataism, data will make man like God. Well, we a little bit skeptical of that. But Warren Buffett is like a god. When 100-to-1 profit to loss ratio is really remarkable to think about. And it's all about cash flow, and it's all about good businesses, and it's all about it. The story sounds relatively simple, but it's also about reputation. He says that every 2 years he would write a letter to every CEO and says, don't do anything that would ever ruin the reputation of Berkshire Hathaway. I would ask you if that's still the way American capitalism runs. I would say that's not the case at all. That's not the case at all. Whether it's Washington, D.C., or the Silicon Valley, or Wall Street, big corporations and people with power and money do whatever they want. They don't care about reputation. But so back to Ethereum. So Vitalik Buterin, and I think this is how you should think of all things related to blockchain. You don't really have to pick your favorite crypto. My crypto is better than your crypto. That's not. I think Vitalik Buterin created a new form of capitalism. So when they created Ethereum, he, like Warren Buffett and Munger, just created this digital little package of software called a wallet, which they emailed to you, and then it had Ethereum in it. And in return, you sent Bitcoin back this way. So when Charlie and Warren issue shares of Berkshire Hathaway, cash comes in the account, and Ethereum goes out, just like shares of Berkshire get processed through an investment bank like Goldman Sachs, and billions and millions and billions come in the checking account. Here's what I want you to think about with this. That old legacy system has now been replaced by a system that's now open source. And what we're doing here, starting next week with our new technical partner, is allowing you to use this system to create your own equity.